All right, welcome back to part two of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. However you're listening, however you're watching, we greatly appreciate it. X and KB coming at you, and man, the Philadelphia Eagles, KB, they haven't been looking like the champs for the past couple of weeks here. That was not what I expected to see against the New York Giants in Week 6 on Thursday Night Football last week at all. But to help us break all of this down, we have a special guest joining us. World-renowned Eagles fan, but she is also a sports analyst, so she keeps it real when it comes to this team. Welcome to the show, Victoria Bordenga. Victoria, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm sad that we're talking about the Eagles in a bad way, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so losing 34-17 against the New York Giants, it didn't look like it was necessarily going to go that way in the first half, especially when there were four tush pushes in a row to get a touchdown into the end zone. But everything kind of went downhill from there. But one of the things about you that I've seen you do constantly on social media, you have talked a lot, and we've talked also away offline from this too. You talked a lot about I'm not sold on this offense. I'm not sold on some of the things that I'm seeing. There are some things that need to change up. And I was even saying this while they were winning these games big. You were like, nope, there's still some things I'm seeing that I don't like. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that now, especially being where we are now, two straight losses?
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously winning is important in any sport with any team, but how you win matters, like you can win, but if you win sloppily, like that matters. So the Eagles starting off 4-0, sure, that's awesome. They had, one of the best records in the league, but how they were doing it was not sustainable for their success. And a big part of that has been their offense. I can't coin this, what I'm about to say, but I have adopted as my own saying. The Eagles' offense is a Ferrari, and they gave the keys to someone who's never driven before. And I feel like that is the biggest problem with their offense right now is they have an offensive coordinator who does not know what he's doing and a head coach who is really just kind of a facilitator, not so much a coordinator, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's why it has been so messy on the offensive side of things the past 2 weeks, and why I'm not sold on this team, because it doesn't seem like they have a consistent rhythm or a consistent identity, which is crazy considering what we saw last year from them.
Yeah, but we also saw this same type of thing 2 years ago with this offense too, before Kellen Moore was brought in to be the offensive coordinator, KB. So we saw it in Shane Steichen in 2022. That offense was humming, and they were on the next level, representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. And then in 2024, back to doing the same thing, and this time winning the Super Bowl. But in 2023, we saw them start off 10-0 or 10-1, and then they just fell down the stretch. And I don't want to say we're headed in the same direction here just yet, because there is more on this team now than there was in 2023 that I still think can help them get it turned around. But there are some things that have to be cleaned up. No doubt about it. KB, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely agreed. I saw a graphic that was kind of interesting that I just saw. In all six of their games, they've been outgained in all six games. So they do have a problem sustaining offense, being consistent on the offensive side of the ball. And while it's been kind of quiet, AJ Brown and his, lack of being involved in the offensive game plan week in and week out, I do think that is going to be something that's going to, it's going to be something that we're going to have to see more and more of if this continues. I do honestly see a couple of, like what Victoria said, was it is important how you win, because we saw even in the Rams game, they're a blocked field goal away from losing that game. They didn't look the best in the opener against the Cowboys. So it is how you are winning games. Are you being dominant? Are you just squeaking by? Or how are you winning these games? And do teams fear you? I don't think they fear you like they did last year. I'm going to just go ahead and say that. I don't think they have that fear factor where their, offense is. They can beat you on the ground. They can beat you in the air. I don't see that this year. I don't see a lot of them being fluid offensively. I see Jalen Hurts. Yes, he wins games, but also it's now we need to see, can he win games, and him being the biggest part of the reason why they're winning games, not just being a complementary piece in that. So, I'm still waiting to see certain things from the Eagles. I'm not going to count them out yet, because they still have all those weapons that we can't discount. So I'm not ready to put them out of the ranking as far as being a leader in the NFC, but I am concerned. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, Kevin Patullo, the current offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, he served as the team's passing game coordinator from 2021 to 2024. And he was also the associate head coach for the previous 2 seasons as well, promoted to the offensive coordinator during the offseason after the departure of Kellen Moore, him leaving to become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. One thing I do want to say about one thing you said about them involving A.J. Brown in the offense more going forward, they have been doing that for the past few weeks. That's the problem right there. They have been doing more of that. They have been involving him more. They have been involving Devontae Moore. And things still are shaky. My biggest concern right now when it comes to this team is why can they not get Saquon Barkley going? I saw a rumor last week that there's a possibility that he could be injured and it just hasn't been reported on the injury report. Victoria, have you heard anything like that?
So anything that I've seen on like the Philly media accounts that I follow, I haven't seen anything about reports of him being injured. I'm sure that's probably what people would want to hear to give an excuse as to why like his production value has been so bad so far. But I think like the truth of the matter is, again, offensive coordinator, you have this is what I'm going to try not to get riled up on this. You have Saquon Barkley who went off last year, arguably one of the best running backs in the league, and you only have him carry the ball like less than 10, 15 times. That's ridiculous and unacceptable. And that's what it goes back to, play calling being an issue, and also the offensive line not producing the way that they are used to, if that makes sense too. I feel like when they give Saquon the ball, it's just right up the middle. They're like, that's all they do is right up the middle. And I feel like that's why we haven't seen him yet have any type of like production like he did last year. And it's frustrating just as like a fan of football to see, because it's like you have such a talented back and you pay him all this money. And yeah, you only give him the ball like 10 times a game. Like it feels like just like a waste. But I agree with you. I mean, they've been passing the ball a lot the past 2 weeks, and that has been the biggest problem because they're forcing it, and they're forcing it in a way that doesn't complement Jalen Hurts in the way that he plays. So that's why it's not working either, I feel like.
Yeah, there needs to be some balance in there with the running game and the passing game. They're 100%. It also feels like since they've been forcing AJ and Devontae to be more involved in things, it's also kind of taken away some of the touches that Dallas Goedert would be getting as well. And he's a big part of this offense, especially being a big play tight end that goes down the field. One thing I do want to say, though, because I have heard people saying this online, whether they're credible sources or just fans or people on social media talking noise, do not blame this all on Jalen Hurts. Yes, there are some things that Jalen Hurts could be doing better, but this is all not his fault. This is a play calling issue 100% all the way. And when it comes to the running game, you can probably say that folks in Baltimore feel the same way too when it comes to Derrick Henry. Although he's only had one spectacular game throughout the season, and that was the opener at Buffalo, and he slowed down since then. And yes, he is 31 years old. Father time could be knocking on the door. He's still not getting the touches on the football that you would expect him to be getting either. So it's frustrating there when it comes to that part of things too. Is Nick Sirianni, because Victoria, I want to turn this one back over to you because you said what you said about Sirianni, but I'm curious to know, does he need to take more control of the offense? Do you believe he's capable of taking more control of the offense to unlock this thing to be in its full potential? Because with the embarrassment of riches that they have, there is no reason that they should not be able to put up a minimum of 27 or 28 points per game and then have a defense that we know is capable of being able to limit opposing offenses to, in some games, 14 points per game, if we're being honest, because Vic Fangio, he's one of the best in the game at what he does as a defensive play caller.
Yeah, I laughed when you started asking that because this is very similar right now to the Eagles in 2023, and I really hope that it doesn't pan out to be like that as the season goes on, because I agree with KB said, like right now I'm not confident either, but there's still time for them to fix and to pivot and to, make better. I don't think Nick Sirianni needs to get his grubby little hands involved in the offense because he did that in 2023 and it did not bode well. I feel like the offense just got worse and worse. And a lot of people always ask, like, what does Nick Sirianni do then if he doesn't call plays for the defense or the offense? And I think that's a valid question. I think some head coaches are just better at being delegators, better at, setting the tone of the team, being like a motivator, stuff like that. That is what he's good at. He's good at keeping everyone together, being that delegator, being that, motivator and this, that, and third. I honestly think he probably already is running plays with the offense of some caliber because it has been so like poorly run already. So no, he doesn't. If he's involved now, he needs to stop. And if they're thinking about involving him, that should not be a thought because we saw it 2 years ago and it was a dumpster fire. So, but what do I know? I'm just a girl.
So let me just ask this question because I brought it up on the show last week. One name that I think could be in the running to be the offensive coordinator for the Eagles next year, because he was a very good offensive coordinator when he was an offensive coordinator. And we've also seen him do this at times when he has a competent offense where he is in Cleveland. Do you see there being a possibility of where Kevin Stefanski could end up being the Eagles play caller going into 2026? Because obviously you're not going to make this change this year.
Yeah, I don't, Philly fans in general are great and they suck at the same time because sometimes I don't use their brain. Firing Kevin Patullo right now in the season, I feel like would only happen if we're like 4-10. Like if there's no way of going to the playoffs, then fire him. But doing that right now doesn't make sense. So I agree with you on that. I think looking at next year, it's hard to think about next year because you still don't know what's to come from the rest of the season, especially since the league is just so weird right now with all teams across the board. I feel like are super inconsistent. I would be down. I would honestly be down for anyone but what we have right now. I've even thrown out the idea of if Mike McDaniel gets fired from the Dolphins, like I would love to have him. Just someone with experience that can stay. I feel like is huge. Like stop bringing guys in who want a head coaching spot. Bring someone in who's done, trying to accomplish that and that's going to stay. I think is huge. So I would take him. I take anyone at this point.
KB, that's actually a very interesting point because I wasn't thinking about Mike McDaniel as a possible candidate for the Eagles coordinator spot last week when we were talking about this briefly, but he actually would be a good candidate for that spot because all guys are not meant to be head coaches. Some are just meant to be coordinators, and he could be one of those because he doesn't appear to be a leader of men in that locker room with what we're seeing right now in Miami. But with his creativity and schematics that he would draw up, I think that's something that the Eagles should look at. What do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that's why I was kind of like, wow, I didn't even consider him being a choice, but that would actually work. And I think that's what you and Victoria were basically saying. Like it sounds like that the offense is just not creative enough because the creativity would unlock a lot of different things for Saquon, as far as just running him up the middle. This would get him out in space a lot more, is involve him in the pass game a lot more. If you choose to do that, they would find that balance, but it would be natural. It wouldn't be like they're force feeding the pass game just so that they could, accommodate AJ Brown, Devontae Smith because they haven't been involved at the beginning of the season. But I think that Mike McDaniel is definitely a name that we could look at and say, like, it makes a lot of sense because I do think after this season, he's on his way out. If that I would be surprised and like honestly shocked if he comes back next season with everything that's been going on in Miami. If he comes back, I don't know what they're doing. I still don't know what they're doing, but I would be surprised if he came back. So if that's what the Eagles are looking at as a possible change as far as their offensive coordinator position, I'm all for that. I could get on board with that.
Oh, trust me, Mike McDaniel will not be back in Miami. You said next year. I don't know if he's going to make it there till Thanksgiving, the way that things are going there and the way that stuff is just leaking out of that locker room, the way that it is. But something else that happened with the Eagles this week that's making more news, and that is the midseason retirement of Zadarius Smith. We've seen quite a few of these so far. We saw Xavier Howard do the same thing with the Indianapolis Colts just a few weeks ago, too. Zadarius Smith, 3 total tackles, 1.5 sacks, including the 1 sack that he had against Denver last week. Victoria, do you think that this is going to be a hit to your defense, or do you think that it doesn't even matter?
I think it's definitely a hit. I wouldn't say like a big one, but the D line and especially the edge rushers have really struggled so far this season. I don't think that was really dealt with in the offseason like it should have been. And I think that's why he was brought on to have that kind of vet presence So I think it's going to take a hit for that reason alone. I mean, we've been struggling to, not just apply pressure, but actually like get it done in the backfield, sacking quarterbacks or losing, yards and stuff like that. So I hope that before the trade deadline's over, they can bring someone in that would kind of fill that role, but in a greater way, someone probably that's younger. But yeah, I think it's a hit for sure.
All I'm going to say to you is that there is a team right now in New York that wears green and white as well, that I'm sure they're going to have a fire sale going here pretty soon. Between Robert Saleh being the defensive coordinator of the 49ers now, the former head coach of the Jets, and so many of those being his players, I expect the 49ers to be in that market. But I expect the Jets to make some noise. Well, not the Jets to make some noise, but I expect the Eagles to make some noise and make some calls when it comes to that situation too, because we haven't touched on it yet, but that's just a complete tire fire. And I hate it for Aaron Glenn because I really like him. I like the job that he did in Detroit a year ago, especially with all those injuries that happened. But there is nothing that the Jets are doing well whatsoever. And I mean nothing. This is a worse coaching job right now than what Nathaniel Hackett did in Denver. And I didn't think that it would be possible to see anything beyond that. KB, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is unfortunate because I do like Aaron Glenn. I do think he was a great coordinator, but like you said, they're doing now, you're confused by it because, like I said, I don't see how, even just going back to the performance on Sunday, how you can keep Justin Fields in with that offense not doing literally anything. And if it wasn't for Denver's offense not doing literally anything either, that was going to be a blowout no matter what. Um, I just think that him not going to Tyrod Taylor and just making that change when it was needed, like your quarterback got sacked 9 times. It's very few things that you're going to be able to do from a week to week basis that's going to be able to correct stuff like that. You saw Brees Hall, he's frustrated. Garrett Wilson's frustrated. If you saw towards the end of the first half, Garrett Wilson walked off the field. He was the ultimate frustration is coming because he has no idea what their plans are. He said it. He thought that they were going to do one thing. They ended up going to do something completely different and just let the time run out. And you could tell everybody in that organization, whether they're saying it behind closed doors or saying it publicly, they're frustrated. So I mean, this is bad right now, and I do see a fire sale coming soon.
Victoria, do you also, and I want you to touch on the Jets point too, but you mentioned needing to possibly go out and get another edge rusher. Outside of a big name like Max Crosby, who I don't see going anywhere with the contract that he got with the Raiders last season. Myles Garrett isn't going anywhere in Cleveland. But one superstar name, I would say, at that position that I think you could be on the lookout for could potentially be Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's a name I've seen a lot too, just on Twitter and stuff, fans saying that, different type of media outlets in Philly bringing that up too. It would be a pretty penny. I think obviously would be worth it too, just what he's able to do, him being on the younger side as well. It just kind of depends because you touched on the Eagles defense being so good. Right now I feel like are a lot of weaknesses, not just in the edge rushing like spot, but I don't think they did well at replenishing the secondary either. So like this upcoming game, Quinyon Mitchell potentially is going to be out. And you saw what Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson did against the Giants. And to think that they're going to cover Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on Sunday is it's an awful thing to think about because they have not been doing great. So like, yes, bringing on Hendrickson would be awesome because it is needed. But I look at the secondary and how that has struggled in recent games. And I also would love for them to make a move when it comes to the cornerback position. You know what I mean? To have either a vet CB2 or someone younger. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but there's been like a rumor of a Browns cornerback that's been tossed around and trying to get him to come to Philly too. So I think there's a couple holes in the defense that need to be filled. So like trying to figure out the salary cap with that, I'm sure is going to be interesting.
But one thing about it, Howie Roseman, he finds a way to make those moves happen and to make them work for the Eagles the best that he could. Going back to the Jets really quickly, since you brought up cornerback, do you think it's enough of a need situation to where maybe they should look at a guy like Sauce Gardner?
I mean, I would take Sauce. Like if they're just gonna have like a garage sale with their players, I would take Sauce no problem. I think he's good, and I think under the right coaching staff, he'll probably even get better. He's young, but I mean, it's weird because I agree with you. I think the Jets probably will start, building up picks and stuff like that to prepare for next season. But at the same time, just in what Aaron Glenn's interview was after the game, like he has no aspirations of like benching Justin Fields. So it's like, would he even want to sell people? Like, y'all said it perfectly. They are an absolute mess right now, but they don't even have any signs of like wanting to fix what they have going on, which is super frustrating. So I'll take Sauce, but as of right now, I don't see the Jets or Aaron Glenn being like, here's our players. I feel like he would want to keep, those guys, obviously.
The corner in Cleveland that you may be referring to is Denzel Ward. It might be him that you're referring to. Really good
Yes.
veteran player who hasn't had a chance to be in a winning situation too many times. I believe that would rejuvenate him, KB, and we would see the best of Denzel Ward, like the Denzel Ward we saw when he first got to his first couple of years in Cleveland. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I love Denzel Ward, and I do think he deserves to play for a contender. I mean, like he's at best top 10. Well, I'm sorry, he's at best a top probably 5 to 7 corner, and at worst a top 10 corner. So you get a guy like that who's still got some. He's still got a lot left that he wants to prove in this league. So I think if you get somebody like that in the building, that changes a lot. Somebody that can guard the opposing team's number one and who can be used in the nickel and can be used on the outside. I think that a guy like that definitely changes the landscape of your team's defense.
I agree with you on that 100%. I feel like if they were to bring in Denzel Ward, he could have a similar effect that Darius Slay had for a couple of years that he had in Philadelphia, too. One more point we want to make about the Eagles before we end this particular segment. I don't believe they should do this, but Victoria, do you think it's time for them to consider moving on from A.J. Brown?
I think that would be very stupid of them to do that. There's been no indication that I've seen from within the facility in the locker room that they are even considering doing that just because they extended him, I believe, last year. The salary cap for that would be atrocious. Like the hit that the Eagles would take just from a financial standpoint would be awful. But the player that he is, there's no way, unless they're like on drugs, there's no way that they would ever give him up because that is absolutely crazy. I think he gets so much attention and so much flack because I think he's just a guy that wears his emotions on his sleeve. And I don't think his intentions are to ever be like malicious or like super like diva-y like wide receivers are. I think he just really cares about his role and his position, and he knows that he's a good wide receiver and he wants to compete. And I think he's just frustrated now because I mean we've seen the offense the past 6 weeks. He hasn't really played that much of a part, and when he does, they're not doing good. So I think right now all eyes are on him and his situation just because of what he has said and what he has vocalized on social media. But I really don't see that being a conversation for this season or next season. But I mean, I could be wrong. Crazier things have happened.
I'm with you on that 100%. In part one of the podcast, we talked about possible destinations if he were to be traded. I mentioned Buffalo as a possible place. I don't know if they're willing to pay the penny for that, but I also don't think Philly should be willing to give up on him too easily either. He is still a very big part of that offense. And when they're able to open that offense up and he's able to be the A.J. Brown that we know that he can be, which is a top 6 receiver in this league at worst, it makes them a different dynamic. KB, what say you on this?
Yeah, I don't foresee a trade. I don't foresee them moving off of him right now because, like I said, he is one of those receivers that if you give him the ball, you see what he's made happen in years past. Since he's been in Philadelphia, I do agree with Victoria. I do think that he just cares so much and that he is an emotional guy. So a lot of this is frustration, but it's also because he cares. Now, most of the receivers that get a rep as being a diva. I don't see this because I've seen divas. I've seen the Antonio Browns. I've seen guys that, when they're not getting the ball, they don't really care as far as what the team is doing. he cares about what the team's doing. He just wants to be able to contribute. Because, like I said, no wide receiver wants to just be out there blocking or just setting up things for other guys. They want to be involved as well too. Um, Buffalo is definitely a trade destination. I saw as being, for AJ Brown. Also, another destination that I can honestly see is if he just wants to be the number one guy, he wants to have his money, he doesn't really care about winning. You look at teams like Arizona, who still hasn't really developed. I mean, granted, they have Marvin Harrison Jr., but outside of him, you just have Trey McBride as a receiving threat, and you don't really have anyone else. That would help open up a lot of the development for Marvin Harrison Jr. If you're just talking about just wanting to get your targets, get your money, Arizona could be another place. But if you're talking about getting your targets and winning, Buffalo would definitely be a place I could see him being in, as well as maybe a few others. But I don't see them moving off of him this year or next year, actually.
That is interesting. Arizona is definitely not a spot that I thought about, but it's definitely one of those sneaky destinations you always have to be on the lookout for big name players to possibly go that might not end up being a winning situation. We saw it with J.J. Watt. We saw it with DeAndre Hopkins. We saw it with A.J. Green towards the tail end of his career too. Going way back when we were kids, Emmitt Smith went to Arizona. So it's always one of those sneaky destinations. The Eagles have the Vikings on Sunday. They'll be in Minnesota. I expect them to bounce back with what the situation is at quarterback right now with the Minnesota Vikings, but not even Vegas is all the way necessarily convinced because the Eagles open up as the favorite, but only by 1.5 points. So we'll see what ends up happening. Victoria, you have any final thoughts on this?
We'll see what happens Sunday. Sunday for me is just going to be a telltale sign of what the rest of the season is going to look like. I feel like after Sunday's game, I can like finally have my like solidified thought on the Eagles. I just need them to show some type of improvement and some type of fight. But if they go into Minnesota and they look the same as they look, especially the past two games, I'm just gonna sit back on the couch and cry the rest of the season. I won't expect much.
Well, I think that there's still something to expect there, even if it is just an NFC wild card berth. And again, guys, like it's just week 6. It's week 6 going into week 7. There's a lot of football left to be played. A lot of things can happen. I'm definitely not writing off this team with everything that they have right now, too. But we want to thank Victoria for joining us for the show, for this segment. It's definitely not the last time we expect for you all to hear from her. Thanks so much, Victoria.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was fun.
Absolutely. Okay,
Right.
speaking of a team who, we've watched show nothing but fight, mainly led by their quarterback, Baker bleeping Mayfield. Man, that was a big win on Sunday for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm so grateful I was able to be in attendance for that because when I tell you Baker shined big time, he shined big time. Whether it was the 3rd and 14 run that he extended for that let everybody know that, hey, right now this is the front runner for league MVP. Losing Emeka Egbuka during this game to a hamstring injury, not having Chris Godwin, not having Jalen McMillan, not having Mike Evans, and finding a way to get it done with Johnson and Johnson. That would be Tez and Cameron, both getting their first career touchdowns. It's very reminiscent of some of the things that you would see Tom Brady do during the heyday of his career when he didn't have a Moss or anyone like that. Now, I'm not comparing Baker Mayfield to Tom Brady, but his winning intangibles and his heart is on full display. This dude is a dog, man.
Yeah, man, that's the biggest thing I can say that I love about Baker Mayfield. He fights. He got heart beyond measure, and literally he goes to battle with whoever's out there. He ain't making excuses. He's just going out there putting his head down, and he's leading by example more than anything. I know a lot of people used to give him so much flack for all the things that he was doing, the antics that he may have had, but literally nobody cares about that when you are doing what you're doing. He's literally leading by example. He's leading the NFC. Buccaneers are leading the NFC. They're leading the division, and honestly, The NFC South has proven to be one of the best divisions now, with Carolina actually getting back to 500. So this is actually a tougher division than people have given credit for. And he's still battling week in and week out. He's going up against so much competition, and he's received so much, flack for the things that he hasn't done. But we should give him more credit for the things that he has done. In the absence of key weapons, he still finds a way. That can't be just discredited. I don't care what you say. You can't replace a Mike Evans. You can't replace a Godwin. You can't replace a Emeka Egbuka. You can't replace these guys, and yet he's still getting it done. Bucky Irvin's been hurt. He's still getting it done. You've seen it firsthand. I've been just able to watch it on TV, but you've seen him do it in person. Like, if he has to be the front runner for MVP. I'm sorry.
All I'm going to tell you is this. On that third down run where he escaped the sack and he's running around and he's doing everything possible to pick up that first down, which he ultimately did, our jaws were dropped in the press box when we saw that, just turning around and looking at each other like, this guy is absolutely amazing. And you mentioned them not having Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. I don't know when Jalen McMillan's going to come back. He suffered that neck injury in the preseason matchup against the Steelers. It wasn't necessarily a career-threatening injury or anything like that, but I don't know at what point we'll see him this season. Mike Evans could come back for Monday night. Chris Godwin could be back for Monday night. Bucky Irvin could be back for Monday night. I haven't heard anything about Emeka Egbuka's hamstring injury yet in terms of how severe it is, so there's a small chance he could play on Monday night. If all of those weapons are there on Monday Night Football to go along with Baker Mayfield as well as the Johnson and Johnson brothers, who aren't really brothers, but still, and Detroit not having Brian Branch in that matchup, I don't know how Detroit wins that game if he's got all those guys.
Yeah, Detroit's best hope in that game is a shootout. And literally, with the weapons that he has, you may have to score almost every possession. Like, I'm being so serious. If I'm Jared Goff, the goal for each drive is to put the ball in the end zone, because with the weapons that he has on the other side, I don't want to give him the chance to even get an opportunity to make a drive where he has, an abundance of weapons at his disposal. Like I said, you have the big body receivers and Mike Evans. You got guys that can, move the chains like Chris Godwin. Then you have guys that can take the top off like Egbuka, and Jalen. Not even just Jalen McMillan, but you have so many different types of weapons over there. Like, there's not one receiver that you can say is the same as the other. They all do different things really well. Some block better. Some are better in between routes, like in the slot. He has so many weapons, but it starts with him. He is a threat. And I've said this even when they played the Falcons in the week 1. He's to the point now, you have to spy him every game. You have no choice. You have to send pressure. If you let him sit in that pocket for 5 seconds and dictate where he goes with the ball, he's going to pick you apart every single time and walk you down the field. So I do think that Baker Mayfield he's shown me, like, the past couple of years, actually, not just this year, but this year I've seen more leadership from him. I've seen him be able to galvanize this team. And honestly, they're dangerous. They're really dangerous. And I know we talked about Kansas City being dangerous. I can honestly see them being just as dangerous. And they had a lot of key injuries as well. So as they're getting healthier, you're going to see a lot of teams. It's going to be hard to deal with. They're going to be hard to deal with going forward.
As Todd Bowles says, got to keep stacking them. So we'll see if they're able to keep stacking these W's. But from one Florida team to the next, and this one is not stacking W's at all. They're just stacking up mess after mess. Man, a bad performance against the Los Angeles Chargers for Tua Tagovailoa, or as what I was seeing on social media to KB, Tua turned the ball over, because that's exactly what he did on Sunday against the Chargers. All 3 of those interceptions he threw was right to the Chargers defense. And then he made a big mess in the post-game press conference. Instead of going up there and taking full accountability for this, or any accountability for that matter, he decided to talk about some of the other issues that are pertaining to the team. How we have guys showing up to not showing up to players-only meetings, or showing up late to players-only meetings. That has nothing to do with what you just went out there and did to her. And it should be noted that no person on that team, since he said this on Sunday, has came out in defense of anything that he had to say. Not that we find that surprising. I just thought that it was notable to be able to bring that up because I don't know who's out first, Tua or Mike McDaniels. What do you think?
Hey man, can we do 2-for-1? That's a serious question because honestly, I didn't understand what was the purpose. What was his goal behind saying that at the press conference? Certain things just need to stay in-house. Them missing player-only meetings, you saying that at the time that you said, I don't think, what did that have to do with how you played and have been playing for the majority of this season? Like, I think that Tua has a problem taking accountability because instead of saying me, I need to be better, he says he'll lump everybody in and say we all need to be better. Like Tua, sometimes you can just take accountability for self, and then sometimes you can take accountability for a group. But this right here is bad. As you know, we just talked about Baker's leadership. Tua has bad leadership, and he's shown that he's had bad leadership. And that also starts with the head coach because the culture is that everyone's not holding everyone accountable. Everybody's feet is not being held to the flames, and that's in, week out. But the thing is, I don't like to hear from my leader that when the ship is going down, I'm going to save myself and only myself. And you are a big part of the problem of why the Dolphins have not been competitive this year. They compete in games, but they're not going to be competitive long term. They are awful. And it starts with Tua and Mike McDaniel. So if you want to ask who goes first, I think they both need to go. That's just my opinion. But I have things that I've seen that would back up why I think that.
And here's the reason I was laughing during this whole time you were saying that. Because what was the biggest quality about Tua that we were said was the strongest part of what he brought to the table? His leadership, right? That's what people have always raved about. That was not leadership what we saw on Sunday in any way whatsoever. I think everybody just needs to change the scenery. And I don't know where Tua would go from here. We already talked about Mike McDaniel being able to go to other places and be an offensive coordinator for other teams. And I believe he would do a spectacular job. With Tua, it's different. He's a smaller quarterback. He's very injury prone, and he doesn't have a great arm necessarily. Tyreek Hill was having to stop in certain places to catch the ball because Tua could not get it down the field to him in certain spots. He was not able to do what Patrick Mahomes was able to do in terms of just being able to air it out and Tyreek just being down there somewhere to catch it. Tua cannot do that. He doesn't play well in cold weather games either. He doesn't have a great record against teams that are above 500. And Chris Greer, we didn't bring him up in any way whatsoever. He's done a bad job of putting this roster together. The construction of this roster has been terrible. They all need to go.
Hey, don't you think they wish they had drafted Justin Herbert now?
Oh, absolutely. They got a front row seat of this on Sunday. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, what Brian Flores wanted the team to do, drafting Justin Herbert over Tua, and you get no better example of it than what you got in week 6 when you saw both guys going up against each other. And it should be noted this about Justin Herbert. They're missing guys on defense. He's missing his 2 top offensive linemen, and he still went out there and cut it up.
Yeah, nothing else needs to be said. You got a front row seat to being wrong in person. You got to see what a quarterback had to do to lead a game-winning drive down the field. That throw that Justin Herbert made while being tackled below the waist to Ladd McConkey to get him down the field, I don't think that Tua could make that throw. That's just me personally. I haven't seen him make it, and I don't think he would have made that type of throw. I think he would have took the sack, and I think that would have pretty much destroyed that drive. But like I said, Justin Herbert, bigger quarterback, stronger quarterback, more mobile quarterback. He can hang in the pocket. Justin Herbert is a quarterback that can make every throw on that field. Tua, like I said, very limited. And I think that, yeah, you're right. Everybody does need to change the scenery. And I think one was coming for Tyreek Hill had it not be for the season-ending injury that he suffered. So I think that it's time to blow it all up. It's all bad. It's going from bad to worse, and I think they just need to blow it all up and start over from scratch.
Now they have a chance to get a win on Sunday, but I'm not convinced that it's going to happen, and that's really bad considering that the opponent is the Cleveland Browns and what we had to say about them in part one of this show. I'm not convinced that they're going to go to Cleveland and get that W on Sunday. Whether it's Dylan Gabriel, whether we see Shedeur Sanders, whatever the case may be. And that's bad considering that you would say that the Miami Dolphins have better weapons than the Cleveland Browns do, having Darren Waller and Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane out there. So we'll see what ends up happening here. But if they lose on Sunday in Cleveland, and depending on how bad it is, I think that could be the end of Mike McDaniel in Miami.
And it'd be justified. If they, like you said, I'm not 100% sure that they're going to go out there because, like I said, Cleveland, as much as we've been highlighting the troubles they've had on offense, they haven't been having so many troubles on defense. So I can see them giving that offense a lot of problems. And I can see a situation where they lose to Cleveland. I'm not like this is one of those games where you really don't have a definitive favorite. There's no definitive favorite. I think that Cleveland's defense has showed up against even some of the best offenses in the league. And if they want to send pressure towards Tua, I don't think Tua is going to be able to handle it. So I could see, like when you had mentioned earlier in the episode that Mike McDaniel possibly may not make it to the end of the season. I honestly could see that being the case possibly this Sunday. This could be a game where he's fighting for his job literally in this 1 week. I think they're monitoring his situation on a week by week basis. And, this is one of those weeks where I see if it goes really bad, he could be out the door. And I would honestly sit Tua down as well.
We'll have to just wait and see what happens. If they do sit Tua down, here are their options at quarterback, Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers. And if they were able to go out there and get more with either one of them, that would look bad not only for Tua and his future in Miami, it would look bad for his future in the league as a whole.
And the organization for giving him that deal.
Yes. Let's get to some of our final notes here, and that's just some game predictions. College football on Saturday, man. It's an SEC showdown. LSU and Vanderbilt. LSU, the number 10 ranked team in the country. The Vanderbilt Commodores coming in at 17. Both are 5-1. I'm going to go ahead and take LSU to win this one, KB.
Yeah, I'm going to take LSU to win this one as well. I'm going to go with a final score of 27-21.
I'm going to go with a final score of 28-24. We got Indiana and Michigan State. Indiana, they open up as a 27.5-point favorite. Man, at this point, I don't know how Indiana doesn't go on a run going up against Ohio State to compete for the Big Ten. I like Indiana. I like them big in this one. I'm not going to give a score prediction, but I just like them to win big.
Yeah, same. I think they got a goal in mind. I think they're focused. I got them winning big as well.
The 3:30 game that's going to have everybody's attention, and that is Ole Miss and Georgia. Georgia opens up as a 7.5-point favorite. So there's always a game that happens when Ole Miss they're going strong throughout a season. You don't know what to expect from them. But I don't know what to expect out of this Georgia team. They got the win on Saturday against Auburn, but I was not very impressed with what I saw, especially from that offense. But I'm going to stick with the home team here. I'm going with Georgia to win this one by a final score of 31-27.
Yeah, like you said, the Auburn game was ugly and, controversial for a number of reasons. I am going to go with Georgia because I do feel like they need a statement win, and they haven't had this year. I'm going to go with the final score being 21-17.
The final college game we'll touch on happening on Saturday is Mississippi State making the trip to Gainesville to take on Florida. Florida opens up as a 9.5-point favorite. They come in with a 2-4 record. Mississippi State is 4-2. So I know that I've picked Billy Napier to win games when his back is up against the wall, KB, but there are rumors coming rampant out of Gainesville this week that no matter if it's a win or a loss, this could be Billy Napier's last game as the Gators coach as they prepare for their bye week. I think Mississippi State gets the win, and I think we see the end of the Billy Napier era at the University of Florida.
I was just about to say that, bro. I think that this game, marks the end. Him losing on the way out the door is just synonymous of like what we've seen from Florida this season. High expectations, but no real success. I think that Mississippi State comes in, gets it done. I will say that it'll be closer than a lot of people expect, but I will say 24-20. Billy Napier's fired after after the game, and yeah, that ends his tenure.
We should get a good NFL game in London on Sunday morning. The Rams and the Jaguars both coming in at 4-2. I'm going to pick the Rams to win this one. I give them the slight advantage, but I do think Jacksonville will play well and they'll put up a fight. Give me Matthew Stafford and company to win this one with a final score of 24-20.
Yeah, I like that score as well, and I like the Rams as well. I'm just not big on these London games. Like these London games have been terrible for me so far. I've not really seen a great game. Possibly if you want to say the Steelers and the Vikings, maybe, but I'm kind of out on the London games. Like I'm tired of waking up watching these mundane, like, kind of spotty games. These games aren't for me at all. But I'm gonna go. I will go with the Rams in this one.
I might wake up and watch this one just because these are the two teams who are playing two of the better teams. I definitely didn't wake up and watch anything with the Broncos and the Jets on Sunday morning in Week 6. The Panthers and the Jets on Sunday. The Panthers come in at 3-3. The Jets are 0-6. They're the only winless team in the league. That trend will continue, KB. I got the Jets falling to 0-7. I got the Panthers winning by a final score of 27-13. And I think there's going to be a decision made on Sunday. I think Aaron Glenn will probably be fired after Sunday's game.
That is rough. But yeah, I do see them losing this game as well. I'm going to go with the score of the game last night, as a matter of not last night, I'm sorry, Monday night, 24-14. I do see Rico Dowdle, and if Chuba Hubbard comes back, I see both of them having their way with that Jets defense. And if Aaron Glenn is gone, hey, I don't know, but I hope that he's not gone. I will hope they would give him a little bit more leeway, but I don't think he's to blame for all of this. I think he does deserve his significant share of the blame, but this whole organization is just bad. It's bad.
The Commanders and the Cowboys are going to face each other at in the 4:25 window on Sunday. Commanders at 3-3, Cowboys at 2-3-1. I'm going with Washington to win this one in Dallas. I do not like what I saw from that defense at all, and we've seen it for most of the season. We thought they may have been cleaning some things up, but what we lost sight of is that was the New York Jets that they were playing against, and they cannot appear to do anything well. Washington, they're going to be ticked off coming into this game, losing on Monday Night Football in Week 6 in a matchup that they had all but won, but turnovers did them in, especially one in the end, that fumble that gave the Chicago Bears really good field position, and all Caleb Williams and company had to do was just consistently move the ball down the field, most notably with DeAndre Swift rushing the football. Give me the Commanders to win this one with a final score of 27-23.
Yeah, I think the Commanders need to get back, lose the way they did against Chicago. I think that was just going to motivate them. Hopefully they can get some of these weapons back, that JD needs. And yeah, I think that the Dallas Cowboys they've had a few times where the offense looks really good. George Pickens having a great year so far, but I'm not sold on that defense. I still think that defense is very bad. I think that secondary is, giving these opposing receivers whatever they want. So no, I'm not sold on the Cowboys at all. And I do expect Jaden Daniels to run roughshod over that team. I think I can get a final score of 31-17.
All right, we got the Falcons and the 49ers in San Francisco. I didn't mention this earlier. I want to go ahead and mention it now. Prayers up to Fred Warner. That was really ugly, what happened on Sunday with the ankle injury. Speedy recovery to him. Hopefully he comes back better than ever. The Niners are going to have to make some trades later on, in my opinion, to get some depth on defense, period. No Bosa, no Warner. That's a rough spot to be in. But they open up as a 2.5-point favorite. I'm not going to do it. I think the Falcons go in and they get the win on Sunday. I think they win this one with a final score of 24-21.
Yeah, you know which way I'm riding, man. I gotta go with the Falcons. I think the injuries on defense for the 49ers, as well as the injuries that they've had on offense, I think they're too big for them to overcome. I think the Falcons still ride the momentum from Monday night's game against the Bills. They roll into Santa Clara and they beat the 49ers 27-21. I think that Bijan has another big game, but not in the same way as the Bills game. I think he gets more involved, even more involved on the passing with the passing game, and kind of has a balanced game on both sides from passing and running the ball.
And the final one I want to touch on is the Bucks and the Lions. Man, this should be a thriller. I'm looking forward to it. But give me Tampa Bay to win. I think they go to 6-1 on the season. Baker Mayfield and company win this one with a final score of 34-28.
Yeah, like you said, it's going to be a shootout. I really only want to see, depending on, I want to pick the Bucks, but it also depends on who plays for them, who suits up for them, and who doesn't. If he has a few of those weapons come back, they're going to be effective with the injuries that Detroit's had in that secondary. I think they can get whatever they want. So for right now, not knowing anything as far as who's playing, I'm going to take the Bucks in a shootout 34-31. If they do not play, I will switch to the Lions though. Just disclaimer out there, I will switch to them.
I'm not going to do that. I cover this team. I want to keep covering this team, and I don't want the folks here to get mad at me about it. I saw too much on Sunday to doubt Baker anymore at this point. I'm just being honest when I say that. Him being able to go out there and get it done with Johnson and Johnson, not having Bucky Irvin, not having those other weapons, man, just he's the one guy I'm just not going to doubt anymore at this point. While Baker Mayfield is standing upright, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to have a shot to win any game that they are in for the remainder of this season. That's going to do it for this episode of Why Not Us, Why Not Now. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you again to Victoria for joining the show. You can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you get your podcast platforms. We'll also have this up on our YouTube page. I'm X. He's KB. We're saying peace.
Peace.